At long last, and after many years of development, the last planet in Star Citizen's first star system has made its debut. A planet that's been a fixture of the persistent universe since its first release in 2015, being then just a mere sphere with a texture on it. Now though, in the most recent patch, the Crusader gas giant has become real. A fully volumetric cloud-based sphere that you can fly down to and into to the point of being crushed by its immense atmosphere, making this not only of course a first for Star Citizen, but a first for the industry. And it's only one part of the new patch coming this month. Hey guys, Morphologist here, and in this video I'm going to take you through the best features of patch 3.14. We'll fly down and through the clouds of the gas giant Crusader, where I'll explain how this is a big step forward for other star systems in the game. Then I'll take you through the cataclysmic changes to ship combat, such as with the new missile operator mode, ship capacitors, shields, and ship scanning and detection, which will change the way you detect others and how you are detected out in the black. Just like how I'm going to tell you about today's video sponsor, NordVPN, who can protect you from being detected out there on the internet. They even gave me my very own portal for you guys to support me over at nordvpn.com/morphologist. It's no secret that I actually work from Taiwan, and that causes a lot of difficulty for me in my day job working in architecture, and so I've legitimately used them for years to help me access IP-restricted websites, and to even watch my favorite shows on streaming apps, which are also restricted because of where I live. So if you're looking for a good VPN, get the right tools with NordVPN. Right now they're offering a 2-year plan with a huge discount when you go to nordvpn.com/morphologist and use my code morphologist. It'll also give you an extra month free. And hey, if you don't like it, you can always get your money back with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Like many of you, my first impression of Star Citizen began with the gas giant Crusader overlooking Port Olisar. I remember standing just at the edge of the gravity well of a landing pad looking up at its magnificence in pure awe of the scale of Star Citizen. And perhaps like many of you, I imagined wistfully of a time when we could enter its atmosphere and fly amongst its clouds. Through the years, many planets came, and planet tech itself improved greatly. And yet, that Crusader gas giant still remained to be untouched, at least on the surface, because all along, CIG was working on their cloud tech to make Crusader possible. And in 3.14, it's become real. While volumetric clouds certainly aren't new in the industry, it is new to have them wrap around an entire sphere and be seen at all levels of detail, from very far away to very close. And this was the biggest challenge for CIG. Games like Microsoft Flight Simulator can get away with it because they only simulate a local area in which you're flying. At no point do you fly to space and look down, which is why Crusader ended up being the last archetypal planet that they finished for the Stanton system. And I say archetypal because that's exactly what the Stanton system is supposed to be, an archetype for the entire universe, where every type of planet and moon that they could encounter is simulated, providing the team a framework and the tools for creating the next star system, Pyro, which also consequently contains its own gas giant, which is why the completion of Crusader is so significant for the development of the game. Now, CIG cautions us that this tech is still not fully complete and that they're working on some final polish and some local VFX to really make it pop a lot more up close, because right now when you look at it very closely, it's difficult to understand because the clouds are so massive. Even better still is the landing zone Orison, which is a shipyard floating high in the atmosphere where Crusader Industries terraformed that portion of its atmosphere to become breathable. It's easily Star Citizen's most beautiful location to date, with stunning vistas overlooking its massive arrays, which, by the way, are all places you can actually fly to and land on. Some even having interiors which I've been told are going to be where we'll have missions to do in the future, including those barges you see flying around. In fact, you can actually land on them right now if you like. But now let's move on to changes to gameplay. Now, before we get into the really massive changes to combat, I first want to tell you guys about a few little tiny things they changed in the game in 3.14 that they're not telling us about in the patch notes. and then we'll ramp up to that very important information about how ship combat is nothing like you're used to. One such change is the physicalization of weapon magazines. Now, this might at first not seem like a big deal, but it actually is when you think about the fact that you can actually now place them on your ship and give them to your friends. Sadly though, after some testing, I discovered that you can't pick them up off of dead NPCs just yet, but you can pick them up off of players that you've killed, so there's that for now. The next big changes to our ship HUDs. They've now transitioned to a new building block system that allows them to much more quickly create, tweak, and update a more informative heads-up display. This has let them add important information like your ship's vector, a compass heading, and an elevation readout that's relative to the sun, which is north in space, and relative to the poles of planets and moons when you're within their atmosphere. They've also added in things like ship's IR and EM, as well as cross-section rating, a boost in heat level, and very usefully, the amount of ammo left in your weapons, which also includes energy weapons, which we'll go into later because we've not had an ammo count for those before. Hint hint, that's part of the really big change in this patch. The HUD also has two new operator modes, Scanning Operator Mode and Missile Operator Mode. This is very different than what we had before, because now these modes can actually be accessed by co-pilot seats if you have them in your ship. Now for Missile Operator Mode, the co-pilot can now swap to this mode to select missiles to lock onto nearby targets. They don't need to lock on anymore in the way we used to have to. You just need to turn on the mode and target what you want to lock onto, and it will automatically lock onto that target if it's in range. One of the coolest parts of this new mode though is that it's tied to the operator's helmet, meaning that now instead of locking onto what's directly in front of the ship, it locks onto what the operator sees. So yes, you can actually lock onto targets completely off axis, and it feels totally badass. Though this really isn't an advantage, it's just sort of a cool thing that you can do since you probably should be aiming at your target with your guns anyway. It's more of a benefit, I'd say, for the co-pilot because then they could be shooting off missiles while you're focusing on a separate target. You can also now dumbfire missiles or torpedoes, which opens up some doors to bombing runs, which is something I actually showed you in the intro and here now on the screen with a small squadron of stealth eclipses, and a retaliator for good measure. For scanning mode, it operates pretty much on the same principle as Missile Operator Mode. You can access it as a co-pilot or as a pilot and scan down targets using what you're looking at with your helmet. And as a refresher here, radar works in two basic modes, passive and active. Active is done by pinging for targets, which allows you to pick up signals further out, but also gives away your position by raising your ship's signature. The big change for 3.14 though is that now the UI can detect far more information about a detected blob, allowing you to even discriminate a signal strength to guess about what's in that blob before you get there, meaning that skilled users can actually guess at a detected blob's ship composition, perhaps giving you an edge up before you engage in battle. And as a bonus, the new pinging system also doubles as a way to see on the dark side of planets, so that's pretty cool. Big changes though are also coming in 3.14 with the passive scanning mode. So in this new update, after some science, we discovered that large ships like the Carrot can now occlude other ship signatures if their signatures are lower, as long as it's within 500 meters of the ship. Maybe even cooler yet still though is the fact that if you fly in formation in small ships like with the Gladius, you can actually hide your numbers now as well, so long as you're within 100 to 200 meters of one another, encouraging pilots to learn to fly together as opposed to separate. The very biggest change to 3.14 though is the cataclysmic change to ship combat and flight. Every single ship's handling characteristics have been changed in this new patch to be rebalanced with how CIG envisions every class of ship being able to fly. But there's also been a fundamental change in how our ships are powered. 3.14 introduces something called capacitors, which will affect your shields, weapons, and engines. And these capacitors are managed by the good old power triangle that we've always had. With this new system, energy weapons are now restricted by a limited rechargeable pool of rounds that vary based on the type of weapon, power management, and even your power plant. However, there is a twist. Despite the fact there's limited ammo, the DPS output for all weapons, including energy weapons, has been greatly increased. This has significantly reduced the time to kill for every ship class. However, it is worth noting that the time to kill that I'm talking about here is for on-target time, meaning that it doesn't really affect the amount of time you might spend in combat, as from what I've seen, skilled pilots are now changing the way they engage by not staying within weapons range for too long, skirting the edge between being in weapons range and being in missile range, which is pretty difficult to do. Ballistics, on the other hand, aren't affected by power systems, but now have a very limited magazine. Just like the energy weapons though, all ballistics too got a huge bump in DPS, but to counter this, they've also added resistance to shields across the board, making it so that ballistic fire is really more situational towards the end of a fight after you've gotten their shields down, at least more optimally. It is still possible to run a full ballistic loadout, and we've been seeing a lot of PvP pilots do that. It's just that you're not going to be able to stay and engage for too long, as you're only going to have enough ammunition for 1 to 2 targets. For shields, the regen rate is now affected by the power balance, so the less energy you put in the shields, the slower the recharge rate. Engines follow suit, meaning that your boost will also recharge fastest when your engines are given full power. The largest rebalance in all of this, though, is probably with ship turrets. With the new capacitor system, they have capacitor pools just like the main ship weapons, but they are about 3 to 4 times larger than the main weapons, meaning that they can fire for a lot longer with that very high DPS output. In one of the tests we performed to see how this has all made a difference, we took a stock Constellation with 2 gunners up against a stock Gladius and a stock Cutlass Black, also with a gunner. The Constellation handily took out the Gladius very quickly and even nearly destroyed the Cutlass before it had to turn and run. In a second test, we added a fully manned Harbinger, but even still, it managed to fend itself off for over 5 minutes before succumbing to the 3v1 situation. Throw in the fact that missiles and scanning can now be operated by co-pilots, and you have the best multi-crew balance we've ever had in Star Citizen. It's completely upended the 2-pilot 2-ship proposition. Now there's a lot of incentive to have somebody man your turret as opposed to having them pilot a second ship, because I think now in 3.14, it's going to become a standard that you have somebody in your gunner position if you take a multi-crew ship into PvP. And we may even see a shift in PvP towards multi-crew ships for dominance of an area. But all of this really adds up to the fact that in 3.14, combat is far more tactical, requires a lot more experience and forethought, and is a far more rewarding experience when you come out on top. This new combat system is going to be a big deal in the 2 upcoming events that they're testing in the P2U right now, the Ninetales event as well as the Xenothreat Part 2. The Xenothreat event will run much like it did last time, where you're going to be tasked with protecting the Stanton system by refueling and refitting the Javelin Destroyer, which will aid in the final battle. This time though, there are going to be in-game rewards with a reputation system, and it promises to be far more engaging and in-depth. The second event, the Ninetales event, will also involve the new reputation system, except this event is going to be centered around stations and quantum interdiction lockdowns. So in this event, a single station will be locked down by the Ninetales gang, meaning nobody can quantum in or quantum out. You have to come in from very far away and fly in manually. Participation in this event will happen in one of 2 ways. Either you can join the Ninetales in attacking the Stanton system, or you could join the Stanton security force in defending the system against this pirate threat. There is kind of a third option as well for those of you who are interested in trading and making money, as these stations that are being locked down promise to be really valuable places to buy and sell goods during the time it's locked down. Overall then, this is a really important patch for Star Citizen, especially if you care about ship combat. This is one of the best times to give your input to CIG, as they're still tweaking it right now in the P2 and will be for some time. They're just only in Wave 1 now. And as I understand it, they're also going to be using these upcoming events to help tweak the balance, and so if you want to see a ship be a certain way, now's the time to give your 2 cents and provide some good reasoning. But while that's it for the best features of 3.14 from this video, there are plenty more for you to explore for yourself, so be sure to check out 3.14 when it finally goes live. And don't forget, if you're looking for a VPN and you want to support the channel, head on over to nordvpn.com/morphologist and use my code Morphologist. See you guys in the next one.